The Trump paradox presents an unusual situation. It suggests prosperity arising from unexpected sources. This wealth comes from hands we chose not to shake. The paradox highlights how refusing certain connections or opportunities can sometimes lead to unforeseen benefits. President Trump's aggressive tariff policies unexpectedly revitalize a dying Midwest factory town. Lifelong liberal Sarah Matthews is forced to reconsider her deep-seated political views. She must reconcile her animosity with undeniable improvements in her community. Corporate profits soar alongside working-class paychecks. Sarah investigates whether this prosperity masks deeper costs. She questions if a leader she despises might have stumbled onto something genuine. This is despite his seemingly self-serving motivations. The Millbrook manufacturing plant stood before Sarah Matthews. Its old brick exterior reminded her of better times. The usually quiet parking lot was now bustling with activity. Workers streamed in for the reopening ceremony. Sarah clutched her notepad tightly. Her expression showed a mix of determination and doubt as she prepared to cover the event.
This is ridiculous. A tariff-induced sugar high isn't going to save this town,
Sarah muttered to herself. She approached the entrance. She moved through the crowd of jubilant workers. Their excitement fueled her frustration.
Hey, Sarah. Here to cover the good news?
A worker called out with a hopeful expression. His face was beaming with optimism. Sarah responded with a tight smile. Her journalistic instincts were at odds with her personal beliefs. She struggled to reconcile her professional duties with her own convictions.
Just doing my job, Frank. We'll see if it's actually good news in the long run.
Sarah entered the factory floor. She noticed a stark contrast in the surroundings. Shiny new equipment stood out against worn infrastructure. Her eyes scanned the room. They landed on a charismatic figure. The man was surrounded by workers. It was Tom Hawkins, the union leader.
Well, if it isn't Millbrook's own Lois Lane. Come to see the miracle for yourself, Sarah?
Tom's voice carried a hint of challenge. It was tinged with friendly teasing. Sarah prepared herself for the interview. She knew it would test her professionalism.
Tom, I'm here to report the facts, not miracles. Care to give me your take on this reopening?
Facts? Sure thing. Fact is, we've got 200 workers back on the job today. There's hope in this town again. It's all thanks to policies you've been dismissing as failures.
Sarah's pen hovered over her notepad. Her brow was furrowed as she struggled. She was trying to reconcile Tom's words. These conflicted with her strongly held beliefs.
Do you think this boost is only temporary? Have you considered what might happen next? What if the tariffs end up backfiring? These questions highlight the uncertainty surrounding the current situation and its potential long-term consequences.
See, that's your problem, Sarah. You're so sure you know how this ends. But have you asked these folks how it feels? Have you asked how it feels to have a job again? To be able to pay their bills? To send their kids to college? Consider their perspective before you judge the outcome.
Tom gestured around the room. Sarah observed the genuine smiles on the workers' faces. A flicker of doubt crossed her mind.
I understand that, Tom, but my job is to look at the bigger picture, the long-term effects.
My job is to fight for these people. I need to do this right here and right now. Maybe it's time for you to step out of your bubble. You should really see what's happening in your own hometown. By doing so, you'll understand why immediate action is necessary.
Tom's words hit Sarah hard. It felt like a punch to her gut. She opened her mouth to respond. But Sarah found herself speechless. For the first time in a long while, Sarah Matthews felt her beliefs waver.
That's my cue. The reopening ceremony is about to start. You're welcome to stay, Sarah. Who knows, you might learn something.
As Tom walked away, Sarah remained motionless. Her mind was racing with thoughts. She looked around the revitalized factory floor. The workers' faces showed enthusiasm. Sarah felt a growing sense of uncertainty. She realized this story might be more complex. It was more complicated than she first thought. Sarah Matthews walked down Main Street. Her footsteps echoed off the empty storefronts. Millbrook's formerly busy center now stood quiet. It was a sign of long-term financial struggles. As Sarah passed the familiar buildings, she felt sad. Her struggling hometown tugged at her heart.
Another boarded-up window. How many more businesses can this town lose before there's nothing left?
Sarah rounded the corner. She spotted her friend Lisa Chen opening up her small boutique. A flicker of surprise crossed Sarah's face. She noticed a handful of customers already waiting outside.
Lisa, I didn't expect to see you open this early. What's the occasion?
Sarah, good morning. There's no special occasion today. I'm just trying to keep up with demand. Can you believe it? I've actually had to extend my hours lately.
Sarah's brow furrowed. Her expression showed a mix of emotions. Confusion and skepticism were evident on her face.
Really? That's unexpected. I thought things were still pretty tough all around.
They were, but there's been a shift lately. I'm not sure why this change has occurred. However, I'm not complaining about it. Maybe it's due to those new policies everyone's been discussing.
Sarah tensed at the implication. Her journalistic instincts were coming to life. The situation had triggered her professional reflexes, prompting her to investigate further.
Lisa, are you really suggesting that? Trump's policies can't be truly helping. It's likely just a temporary blip.
I don't know, Sarah. All I know is this. For the first time in years, I'm not worried about paying rent. Isn't that a good thing?
Of course it's good for you, but at what cost? We can't ignore the bigger picture here.
Lisa's expression fell. The excitement in her eyes began to fade. This change was caused by Sarah's dismissal.
I thought you would be happy for me, Sarah. I know you have your own views. Can't you just be glad things are improving? Even a little positive change is worth celebrating. Their support would mean a lot to me right now.
I am glad for you, Lisa. I just can't help but wonder about the long-term consequences.
An awkward silence fell between the two friends. The strain in their relationship was evident. Sarah shifted uncomfortably in her seat. She realized she might have pushed too hard. The tension between them was unmistakable, and Sarah's discomfort grew as she understood her actions may have crossed a line.
I should get back to my customers. Take care, Sarah.
As Lisa turned away, Sarah felt a twinge of regret. She continued her walk, lost in thought about their conversation. Suddenly, something caught her eye. It made her stop abruptly, frozen in place.
Wait, is that a help wanted sign?
Sarah stared in disbelief at the sign. It hung in the window of a vacant shop. The sign was a small thing, but in Millbrook, it felt monumental. Sarah stood there, unable to move. She felt something was changing in her town. It was a change she couldn't quite explain or accept. The aroma of pot roast filled the Matthews family home. Sarah helped her mother set the table for their weekly Sunday dinner. The familiar routine brought a sense of comfort. However, an underlying tension hung in the air. Sarah couldn't dismiss the feeling that something was different this time.
Mom, have you noticed how busy Main Street's been lately? It's almost like the old days.
It's a welcome change, that's for sure. Your mother and I were just talking. We discussed how the pharmacy finally restocked. They now have those fancy soaps she likes.
Sarah paused while eating her salad. Her fork hovered over the bowl. Her father's tone carried an unfamiliar note of optimism. This unexpected change made Sarah feel uneasy.
Dad, I have a question for you. Do you really think this is related to Trump's policies? It's more likely just a temporary blip?
Now, Sarah, I know you have your opinions. However, we can't ignore what's happening right in front of us. The factory is running 3 shifts again. People are spending money in town.
Sarah's eyes widened in disbelief. She set down her glass with extra force. This caused water to splash onto the tablecloth.
Are you serious, Dad? This is the same man who's been spreading hatred. He's been dividing the country. How can you possibly think he's doing any good?
It's not that simple, honey. I don't like everything about the man. But I can't deny his trade policies are helping. They're bringing work back to Millbrook. You remember how hard it was, don't you? It was tough when the factory cut my hours.
Sarah felt a surge of emotions. She experienced confusion, frustration, and a hint of betrayal. Sarah had always assumed her family shared her political views. This belief had never been questioned before.
Of course I remember. However, that doesn't mean we should support someone. This person opposes our long-held beliefs. What about workers' rights? And what about environmental protections?
Look, Sarah, I'm not saying he's perfect. You've seen your town decline over many years. This experience changes how you view things. Sometimes you have to accept both the good and the bad aspects of a situation. When you've observed such long-term changes, it can shift your perspective on what's important.
The conversation came to a halt. An uncomfortable silence filled the room. Sarah's mother looked nervous. She glanced between her husband and daughter. The tension was growing among them. The family members seemed uneasy in each other's presence, with unspoken words hanging in the air.
I just can't believe what I'm hearing. Dad, you voted Democrat your entire life. You were at every union rally. How can you suddenly be okay with someone like Trump?
It's not about being okay with everything, Sarah. It's about recognizing when something is working. This can be true even if it comes from an unexpected place. You're a journalist, aren't you? Shouldn't you be looking at things objectively?
Sarah felt as if she'd been slapped. Her father's words cut deep. They challenged her political beliefs. They also questioned her professional integrity. The impact was both personal and professional, shaking Sarah's core values and self-perception.
I am objective. I'm not blind to the bigger picture. This town's revival could be a fluke. It might not last long. And at what cost? These are important questions to consider when evaluating the situation.
People are being given hope again through the provision of food. However, Sarah, it's important to broaden your perspective. Take the time to truly listen to the individuals you're writing about. This approach will help you better understand their experiences and needs.
The room felt very tense. Sarah's mother cleared her throat. She was trying to calm everyone down. The atmosphere was so thick with tension, you could almost touch it. By making a sound, Sarah's mother hoped to break the uncomfortable silence and ease the situation.
Look, honey, I'm not asking you to change your beliefs. I'm just saying that maybe there's more to this story. There might be more than you think. Why don't you talk to some of the workers at the factory? Hear what they have to say.
Sarah sat back in her chair. Her thoughts were spinning. She looked at her father. He was the man who had shaped her political views since childhood. Sarah realized something important. The world she thought she understood so well had changed. It had suddenly become much more complicated. This realization left her feeling overwhelmed as she considered her father's influence and the new complexities of the world around her.
I'll think about it, Dad. But I'm not promising anything.
The family resumed eating in silence. Sarah couldn't ignore a persistent feeling. This dinner had marked a turning point. Her beliefs were challenged. She knew the coming days would be challenging. Sarah would have to confront new questions. These were things she had never considered before. The bustling newsroom of the Millbrook Gazette hummed with activity. Sarah Matthews walked quickly towards her editor's office. Her mind raced with ideas for a new series of articles. Sarah clutched her notebook tightly in her hand, ready to share her thoughts.
Hey, Jim, got a minute? I've got a pitch I think you're gonna love.
Sarah, come on in. What's brewing in that investigative mind of yours?
Sarah settled into the chair. She sat across from her editor. Her excitement was clearly visible.
I want to conduct a thorough investigation into Millbrook's economic revival. There's more to this story than just Trump's policies fixing everything. I'm thinking of writing a series of articles. These articles will really get to the heart of what's happening here in Millbrook.
Sounds interesting. I'm sensing a bit of an angle here already, Sarah. Remember, we need to remain objective.
Of course, Jim, I'm suggesting there might be factors we're not seeing. Some companies may have already planned to invest here. This could have happened before the new policies. We might also be overlooking long-term consequences.
Jim leaned back in his chair. He studied Sarah intently. His expression mixed concern with amusement.
Look, Sarah, I understand you have strong opinions on this topic. We're planning to run this series, and I need your cooperation. Can you promise me you'll approach it with an open mind? It's important to talk to people on both sides of the issue. Focus on gathering facts, not just confirming your expected narrative.
I can do that. I'm a professional, Jim. I know how to separate my personal views from my reporting.
Let's get started. We'll begin by consulting some economic experts. Next, we need to gather some hard data on the subject. Sarah, this part is for you. In your research, try to uncover information that surprises even yourself. This approach will help ensure a thorough and potentially innovative analysis.
Later that afternoon, Sarah sat across from Dr. Emily Rogers. Dr. Rogers was a respected economist from the State University. As the interview progressed, Sarah became increasingly uncomfortable. She found herself troubled by the data being presented.
The numbers don't lie, Ms. Matthews. We're seeing a 15% increase in manufacturing jobs. There's also a 10% rise in small business startups. Median household income is up by 8% in Millbrook alone. These are significant improvements.
Surely there must be some other explanation. I mean, we should consider alternatives. Things that seem related aren't always cause and effect. Correlation doesn't always equal causation. Isn't that right? We need to think critically about the connections we observe.
Economic trends are complex. However, we've compared Millbrook's data to similar towns without these new policies. The difference is stark. It's clear to see a positive impact here. The evidence makes it hard to argue against the effectiveness of these changes.
Sarah's pen hovered over her notebook. Her forehead was creased in concentration. She was experiencing inner conflict as she prepared to write.
What about long-term sustainability? Or potential negative effects we're not seeing yet?
Those are excellent questions. They are certainly worth exploring. However, let's focus on the current situation. The data shows concrete advantages for Millbrook residents. Isn't that what matters most?
As the interview concluded, Sarah thanked Dr. Rogers. Her mind was whirling with conflicting thoughts. She stepped out onto the street. The sight of newly reopened shops caught her attention. There was a buzz of activity around her. Sarah was forced to confront a difficult truth. Millbrook was changing. Her long-held beliefs were being questioned in unexpected ways.
Muttering to herself, what am I going to do with this? How do I write this story?
Sarah let out a heavy sigh. She headed back to the office. A series of articles awaited her there. These articles would be far more challenging than expected. They also had the potential to bring major changes. This was beyond what Sarah had initially imagined. Sarah Matthews stepped out onto Main Street. She held a notepad, ready to assess Millbrook's atmosphere. The once familiar stretch of storefronts seemed different. There was a buzz in the air. A cautious energy filled the street. Sarah couldn't quite place this new feeling. She was determined to understand the change in her town.
All right, Sarah, time to see what's really going on here.
She approached a middle-aged woman. The woman was exiting a hardware store. The store had recently reopened. She carried bags in her hand.
Excuse me, ma'am. I'm Sarah Matthews from the Millbrook Gazette. Do you have a moment to chat? I'd like to discuss the changes in town.
Oh, sure thing, honey. What do you want to know?
I've noticed the hardware store is back in business. Have you seen this change in our town? What are your thoughts on Millbrook's recent economic shifts?
It's like a breath of fresh air. I tell you, my husband and I have been able to restock our shelves. This is the first time in years we've done this. And you know what? I hate to say it, but I think we have President Trump to thank for it.
Sarah's pen hesitated over her notepad. Her brow furrowed slightly as she paused.
Really? What makes you attribute it to his policies specifically?
There's been a lot of talk about bringing jobs back. We've also heard about protecting American businesses. This approach seems to be working, doesn't it? Just look around you. People are spending money again.
Sarah nodded politely, jotting down notes. She thanked the woman and moved on. A sense of unease lingered with Sarah. She spotted Tom Hawkins, the union leader. Tom was chatting with a group of workers outside the diner.
Tom, got a minute?
Sarah, always got time for our local muckraker. What's on your mind?
I'm trying to get a sense of how people are feeling about the economic changes. Care to weigh in?
Look, I know we don't agree on politics, but we can't deny the facts. The plant is running at full capacity now. We're hiring again, and it's all due to new policies. The tariffs and trade deals are making a difference. Trump's approach may be unconventional. However, he's getting results for working people like us.
Sarah's grip tightened on her pen. Her journalistic instincts were at odds with her personal beliefs.
But what about the long-term effects? Economists warn that protectionist policies could...
Sarah, I understand your concern, but we've heard about long-term effects for years. Meanwhile, we've been watching our town die. Right now, people have jobs. They can feed their families. That's what truly matters.
Sarah continued her interviews throughout the day. She encountered a mix of opinions from people. However, she couldn't ignore an undercurrent of optimism. Even skeptics admitted to seeing positive changes. As the sun began to set, Sarah found herself outside her father's favorite diner. She was feeling more conflicted than ever. Suddenly, there was a burst of excitement. Chatter erupted from a nearby table. The noise caught her attention.
Did you hear? There's talk of a new tech company looking at the old Wilson factory space. No kidding? That'd bring in some serious jobs. I'm telling you, it's all part of the plan. Make America Great Again isn't just a slogan anymore.
Sarah's pen hovered over her notepad. Her mind was racing with thoughts. A potential new business opportunity had emerged. It could be a major opportunity for Millbrook. Sarah faced a dilemma as a journalist. She was also a lifelong Democrat. How could she reconcile this situation? It seemed to conflict with her core values.
What am I missing here?
The excited conversation continued behind Sarah. She realized her story was incomplete. Her understanding of Millbrook's changes was also unfinished. This revelation made Sarah aware that there was much more to learn about the town's transformation. Sarah's apartment. usually a peaceful haven, now felt like a prison. Conflicting thoughts filled her mind. The warm glow of her desk lamp cast long shadows. Scattered notes and newspaper clippings covered her workspace. She sat hunched over her laptop. Her fingers hovered above the keyboard. Sarah struggled to find the right words.
God, why is this so hard? It's just the facts, Sarah. Just report the facts.
She reached for her coffee mug, only to find it empty. With a sigh, she pushed back from her desk. She paced the small living room. Her mind was filled with rapid thoughts.
Okay, let's review this information again. First, we have the factory reopening. Next, new jobs have been created. Finally, local shops are experiencing increased business. Each of these points has been confirmed and verified.
Sarah paused at the window. She looked out at the town she'd known her whole life. The streets seemed different now. They were alive with a cautious optimism. Sarah struggled to align this with her own feelings. The familiar scene before her had taken on a new character, one that stirred a mix of emotions within her.
But it's Trump's policies. Trump, how can anything good come from...
Sarah glanced at her phone. She saw a text message. The text was from Lisa.
Hey Sarah, I have some exciting news. We just had our best day at the shop in years. I'm really looking forward to reading your article about it. This town really needed some good news.
Sarah's thumb hovered over the reply button. She couldn't bring herself to respond. She tossed the phone onto the couch. Then, Sarah returned to her desk.
Focus, Sarah. You're a journalist. Your job is to report the truth, not your opinions.
She began to type, her fingers moving automatically. She recounted the facts of Millbrook's economic growth. With each sentence, a persistent doubt emerged. This doubt settled in the back of her mind.
The reopening of the local factory has affected our town's economy. This event has brought unexpected changes to the local financial landscape. However, we must be cautious about presenting this information too positively. There are also political aspects to consider in this situation. The policies of the previous administration have had controversial effects, but we should avoid using language that could be perceived as biased. Our goal is to report on these developments objectively and accurately.
Frustrated, Sarah pushed away from her desk again. She ran her hands through her hair. Catching sight of herself in the mirror, she noticed a deep frown on her forehead. The lines between her eyebrows showed her stress clearly.
Who are you kidding, Sarah? You can't even convince yourself, let alone your readers.
She returned to her computer. She stared at the flashing cursor on the blank document. The weight of her responsibility as a journalist weighed heavily on her. An uncomfortable realization set in. Her long-held beliefs were now being challenged. This internal conflict added to the pressure she felt as she prepared to write.
Maybe I need to talk to more people. I should get a broader perspective. I can't let my own biases influence this story.
As the night wore on, Sarah delved deeper into her research. She compared economic reports with local testimonies. Each new piece of information she uncovered had an impact. It widened the cracks in her political beliefs. Sarah found her viewpoints shifting as she processed the data.
What if I've been wrong? What if it's not as black and white as I thought?
The first light of dawn crept through Sarah's window. She finally looked up from her computer. Her eyes were bloodshot from exhaustion. Sarah's mind raced with opposing thoughts. She had started the night certain of her perspective on life. But now, everything seemed different.
I don't know what to believe anymore.
Sarah stared at her reflection in the darkened computer screen. She realized writing this article wasn't just about reporting on changes in Millbrook's economy. It was about confronting her own prejudices. The article also dealt with the complexity of a political landscape. Sarah had once thought she fully understood this landscape. Now, she saw it in a new light. With the new day breaking, Sarah knew one thing for certain. Her journey to uncover the truth about the changes in Millbrook was just beginning. This journey would challenge everything she thought she knew. It would test her understanding of herself and her town. Before we continue, let's take a moment to reflect. What are your thoughts on this story? What would you like to hear next? Please share your ideas in the comments. Sarah Matthews pulled into the parking lot of Millbrook Manufacturing. Her eyes widened as she took in the scene. The previously empty lot was now filled with cars. This was a stark difference from her last visit. She could hear the hum of machinery from outside the building. This familiar sound had been absent for many years.
I can't believe how much has changed in just a few weeks. It's like stepping into a time machine.
Sarah approached the entrance. She spotted Tom Hawkins, the union leader. Tom was talking excitedly with a group of workers. His face lit up when he saw Sarah. However, there was a hint of wariness in his eyes.
Well, if it isn't our favorite skeptical journalist. Come to see the miracle for yourself?
I'm here for a follow-up story, Tom. The changes are impressive, I'll give you that. But I have some questions about this boom. I'm concerned about its long-term sustainability.
Of course you do. Always looking for the catch, aren't you, Sarah?
Tom's tone revealed a mix of amusement and frustration. He excused himself from the group of workers. Tom gestured for Sarah to follow him. They headed into the plant together.
Look around you, Sarah. These aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. They represent real people with real jobs. These people are supporting real families.
I understand that, Tom, but what happens when the tariffs are lifted? Or when other countries retaliate? The whole situation could collapse quickly.
What if it doesn't turn out that way? What if this situation gives us the breathing room we needed? We might use this opportunity to innovate and become competitive again. You seem quick to assume the worst outcome.
Sarah felt defensive when Tom accused her. She took pride in her ability to be objective. However, Tom's words resonated with her deeply. This unexpected emotional response made Sarah reconsider her perspective on the situation.
I'm just trying to look at all angles. It's my job to ask these questions.
Is it your job or your bias, Sarah? From my perspective, it looks different. It seems you came in here with preconceived notions. Your mind appears to have been made up before you arrived.
Tom's words hit Sarah like a punch to the gut. She opened her mouth to retort. However, Sarah found herself at a loss for words.
Let me ask you something. Have you talked to any workers here? I mean, actually sat down with them. Did you listen to their stories? Not just for a quick quote, but really heard what they had to say.
I've interviewed several for my articles.
That's not what I asked. Have you listened without your reporter's hat on? Are you trying to fit their words into your existing story? We need to approach this with an open mind, free from predetermined angles or biases.
Sarah fell silent as Tom's challenge weighed on her shoulders. She looked around the bustling factory floor. She saw the faces of workers, some familiar and others new. For the first time, Sarah truly absorbed the atmosphere. She felt the energy and hope that filled the air.
You're right, Tom. I haven't. And maybe that's been a mistake.
Look, Sarah, I'm not saying everything's perfect. There are still risks to consider. But your neighbors are feeling hopeful. It's the first time in years they've had hope. Don't dismiss that feeling so quickly. Your dislike for the man behind the policies shouldn't overshadow this.
Sarah nodded slowly, her mind racing. She realized her instinctive distrust had affected her view. This distrust was specifically towards Trump and his supporters. It was an uncomfortable realization for her. She knew she needed to confront this bias.
I hear you, Tom. I can't promise I'll change my mind about everything. But I'm willing to listen. This time, I'll really listen attentively.
That's all I'm asking. Now, let me introduce you to some new hires. I think you'll find their stories interesting.
Tom led Sarah deeper into the factory. Sarah felt a mix of emotions. She experienced discomfort as her biases were exposed. However, a growing sense of curiosity also emerged. Sarah realized this story was more complex than she thought. She considered that her own journey might be equally intricate. Sarah pushed open the door to Lisa's store. The cheerful jingle of the bell contrasted with her conflicted mood. The previously struggling shop was now bustling with activity. Shelves were stocked with trendy items and local crafts. Sarah's eyes moved across the transformed space. She felt a mix of discomfort and unwilling praise. The once failing boutique had clearly found success, leaving Sarah with complex emotions about the change.
Hey Sarah, I'm so glad you could make it. What do you think of the new look?
Lisa, wow, this is really something. The place looks amazing. I can hardly believe it's the same store.
Sarah's tone revealed a mix of genuine surprise and hesitation. She carefully examined a delicate handmade scarf. The scarf had a tag that read, "Made in Millbrook." Sarah's brow furrowed as she noticed this detail.
I know, right? It's been incredible. The factory reopened recently. People now have more extra spending money. Because of this, business has really taken off. I've even been able to feature more local artisans in my store.
That's great, Lisa. Really, I'm happy for you. But don't you think it's premature? Attributing all this to Trump's policies may be hasty. There could be other factors at play.
Lisa's smile started to fade. Her excitement began to dim. This change was due to Sarah's skepticism. The reaction between the two friends was subtle but noticeable.
Sarah, I know you have your reservations, but you can't deny the changes we're seeing. It's not just my store. Have you talked to other business owners downtown?
I've been doing some investigating for an article. Yes, that's true. But Lisa, we need to consider the long-term implications. What happens if these policies change? Or if they end up harming other sectors of the economy?
Look, I get it. You're a journalist, and you have to look at all angles. But sometimes, Sarah, I think you're too focused on finding problems. You might be missing the good things happening right in front of you.
Sarah felt a surge of defensiveness. Her cheeks flushed with emotion. She took a deep breath. Sarah tried to maintain her composure.
I'm not missing anything, Lisa. I'm just trying to be objective. Someone has to look beyond the surface. We need to ask the hard questions.
I respect your perspective. However, consider this alternative view. You could allow yourself to feel joy. Be happy for your friends and community. Try not to instantly seek negatives in every situation.
The tension between them was obvious. Sarah glanced around the store. She noticed a group of customers. The customers were giving Sarah and her companion curious looks.
I am happy for you, Lisa. Really, I am. I just need to be sure about something. We shouldn't set ourselves up for future disappointment.
Sarah, I love you. Sometimes your pessimism is exhausting. Not everything has to be a political battle. Can't we just enjoy this moment?
Sarah felt hurt by Lisa's words. A sting of pain shot through her. She realized something with a sinking feeling. This conversation was widening a rift between them. The rift had been slowly growing for weeks.
I'm not trying to make it a battle. I'm just trying to understand all of this. It's complicated, Lisa.
Life is complicated, Sarah. Sometimes good things happen. It's okay to embrace these good things. They may come from surprising sources.
Sarah nodded silently, her mind racing. She looked at her friend's face carefully. Sarah saw not just happiness, but a subtle resolve. This observation made her feel uneasy. She realized Lisa was changing unexpectedly. Many others in Millbrook were also changing. These changes were not what Sarah had foreseen. The quiet shifts in her friend and the town left Sarah feeling unsettled and uncertain about the future.
I should go. I've got a deadline to meet, but congratulations again, Lisa. The store really does look great.
Thanks, Sarah. I hope you'll come by again soon. Maybe visit when you're not working. We miss you at our weekend get-togethers.
Sarah left the store, the cheerful bell now seeming to mock her. She stepped onto the bustling main street, feeling more isolated than ever. The town she thought she knew so well was changing rapidly around her. She wasn't sure if she was ready to adapt to these changes. The morning sun created long shadows across Millbrook's main street. Sarah Matthews made her way to the town hall. She carried a notebook and wore a determined expression. Sarah was ready to analyze the data about the town's economic situation. Her goal was to reveal information about the local economy.
Good morning. I'm Sarah Matthews from the Millbrook Gazette. I have an appointment to review the economic reports.
The clerk nodded and led Sarah to a small room. It was filled with file cabinets and a solitary desk. Sarah carefully examined the documents laid out before her. As she studied them intently, her brow furrowed in concentration.
These numbers, they're not what I expected.
Hours later, Sarah left the town hall. Her mind was racing with new information. She headed towards Main Street. Sarah had scheduled interviews with local business owners there.
Sarah, over here.
Mike Johnson owned a hardware store. It was called Johnson's Hardware. Mike waved to Sarah. He beckoned her to his storefront.
Mike, thanks for agreeing to talk. How's business been since the new policies took effect?
I've got to admit, Sarah, it's been better than I expected. We're seeing more customers coming in. They're also spending more money. However, there's something else to consider.
But what?
The situation isn't entirely positive. Some of my suppliers are facing challenges. They're struggling with the new tariffs. Overall, it's a mixed situation.
Sarah nodded as she jotted down notes. She continued her interviews throughout the day. As time passed, a complex picture began to emerge from her findings.
Lisa, I appreciate you taking the time. How's the cafe doing?
Sarah, I never thought I'd say this. We're actually turning a profit for the first time in years. People have more extra spending money these days. As a result, they're eating out more often.
That's great, Lisa. Really. But do you think it's sustainable?
Honestly, I don't know the answer. For now, I'm just grateful for the reprieve. This break is allowing me to finally pay off some debts. I'm even considering the possibility of expanding.
Sarah struggled with her friend's success. She had misgivings about the policies behind it. As night fell, Sarah returned to the newspaper office. She was there to write her article. The complex situation weighed on her mind as she prepared to put her thoughts into words.
This is going to be a tough one to write.
Hours had passed. Sarah's editor approached her desk. He was reading the final draft of her article.
Sarah, this is surprisingly balanced. You've really captured the complexity of the situation.
Thanks, I think. To be honest, I'm not sure how it's going to be received.
That's often the sign of good journalism. You're not here to make friends. You're here to tell the truth. This approach distinguishes quality reporting from mere social interaction. It emphasizes the journalist's primary duty, delivering factual information, even when it might be uncomfortable or unpopular.
The next morning, the paper hit the stands. Reactions poured in quickly. Sarah's phone buzzed nonstop with messages. The messages came from all sides of the political spectrum.
Sarah, how could you write this? It's like you're endorsing Trump's policies.
Miss Matthews, I never thought I'd see this day. You've written something fair about our side. Thank you for your honesty.
Sarah read through the messages. She felt a mix of pride and unease. She had told the truth as she saw it. But the ground beneath her feet felt less stable. It felt less stable than ever before.
What have I gotten myself into?
The question hung in the air, unanswered. Sarah contemplated the long road ahead. She faced the task of understanding Millbrook's situation. Reporting on the town's changing fortunes would be challenging. Sarah knew she had much work to do to grasp and convey the complexities of Millbrook's evolving economic landscape. The bell jingled as Sarah Matthews entered the Millbrook diner. Familiar scents of coffee and grilled onions filled the air. These aromas mixed with the low hum of conversation. Sarah's eyes scanned the worn red vinyl booths. She spotted a familiar figure hunched over a steaming mug.
Hey, Dad.
Sarah, honey, good to see you.
David Matthews stood up. His weathered hands pulled his daughter into a warm embrace. They settled into the booth. Sarah immediately saw a new gleam in her father's eyes. It was a stark contrast to the weariness that had haunted them for years.
Thanks for meeting me. I've been wanting to talk to you. There's a lot to discuss about our town. So much has been happening lately.
I figured as much. Your articles have been stirring up quite a bit of chatter around here.
A waitress approached Sarah. She poured coffee for her. The rich aroma filled the air between them. It created a brief pause. A serious conversation was about to begin.
Dad, I'm trying to understand your position. You've been a Democrat your whole life. How can you support what's happening now?
Sarah, this situation is not that simple. I haven't suddenly changed my views on Trump. I'm not sure if that's what you're thinking. My position is more nuanced than becoming an enthusiastic supporter.
David's fingers drummed against the side of his mug. This was a habit Sarah recognized well. It reminded her of countless dinner table debates. These debates had occurred throughout her childhood.
I can't deny what I'm seeing. The factory is running again. People are back at work. There's hope in this town. It's the first time in decades. The community is experiencing a renewed sense of purpose and optimism.
But at what cost, Dad? These policies, they go against everything we've always believed in.
Sweetheart, beliefs don't put food on the table. They don't pay mortgages or send kids to college.
Sarah felt a moment of frustration. She forced herself to take a deep breath. Sarah hadn't come here to argue. She had come to listen.
I understand that. But don't you worry about the long-term consequences? Have you considered the environmental impact? What about the international relations we're damaging?
Of course I do. I lose sleep over it, to be honest. But I see positive changes happening. Joe down the street can afford his wife's medication again. Young couples are actually staying in Millbrook. They're not moving away anymore. It's hard to argue with these results.
Sarah watched her father's face. She noticed mixed feelings visible on his face. For the first time, she truly understood something important. Sarah realized the inner conflict her father was experiencing. This moment of insight gave her a deeper understanding of her father's emotions.
It sounds like you're torn.
I am, honey. I really am. I don't like much of what I hear from Washington these days, but I can't ignore the good I'm seeing right here. It's clear and present in front of me.
A moment of silence fell between them. They both sipped their coffee quietly. The weight of their conversation was sinking in. The pause allowed them to reflect on what had been said.
I'm trying to see both sides, Dad. I really am. It's not easy.
I know, Sarah. It wasn't easy for me either. Sometimes, life isn't about easy choices. It's about making hard decisions. We face challenges that test our resolve and push us to grow.
Sarah looked into her father's eyes. She saw a reflection of her own internal conflict. For the first time, she began to truly grasp something important. She understood the human element behind Millbrook's political shifts. The situation she was reporting on was complex. Sarah realized that politics wasn't just about abstract ideas. It involved real people with real struggles. This new understanding deepened her perspective on her reporting assignment in Millbrook.
Thanks for talking to me about this, Dad. I think I understand a little better now.
That's all I ask, honey. I want you to try to understand. We may not always agree, but we're family, and that's what matters most.
As they continued their meal, Sarah felt her long-held convictions shifting. The ground beneath her beliefs was moving ever so slightly. Sarah was learning that the world was far more nuanced than she once believed. The story she had to tell was growing more complex. With every conversation, new layers of understanding emerged. Sarah Matthews stepped out of the Millbrook Herald office. Her mind was buzzing with the conversation she'd just had with her editor. The warm spring sun hit her face as she paused on the sidewalk. She looked at the busy main street before her, taking in the lively scene.
Sarah, I've got to hand it to you. Your recent articles have been impressively balanced. You're really showing the many sides of the situation. Your work reflects what's happening in Millbrook well. The way you present the nuances is truly commendable.
Thanks, Jim. I'm trying to see all sides of the story, even if it's challenging at times.
That's good journalism. I want you to be prepared for what's coming. This kind of reporting is bound to cause controversy. It may upset some people on both sides of the issue.
I know. I can already feel the tension building in town. It's like walking on eggshells sometimes.
Sarah began to walk down the street. Her eyes scanned the storefronts around her. She was struck by the changes in the neighborhood. Fresh paint adorned the buildings. New businesses were opening their doors. Help wanted signs appeared in windows. These same windows had been vacant for years. The street was coming alive with new activity. Sarah walked past the newly reopened hardware store. As she passed, she overheard a heated conversation. Two men were arguing on the sidewalk nearby.
Look around you, Pete. The town is coming back to life. Trump's policies are working. It's plain and simple.
At what cost, though? We're selling our souls to a con man. This can't last.
Sarah slowed her pace. She pretended to window shop. As she listened, an argument nearby grew more intense. Voices were rising in the heated discussion.
You liberals just can't stand to see America winning again. Why can't you admit when you're wrong?
Wrong? Have you been paying attention to what's happening in Washington? There's corruption and lies everywhere.
Sarah winced at the men's words. Their comments cut through her like a knife. This was exactly what she had feared. The town was splitting apart at the seams. Neighbors were turning against each other over politics. Sarah could see the community she loved breaking down due to political differences, and it pained her deeply.
Excuse me, gentlemen. I overheard your conversation. I'm Sarah Matthews, a reporter from the Herald. Would either of you be willing to comment? I'm interested in your thoughts about the changes in Millbrook.
The men turned to her. Their faces were flushed with anger. For a moment, Sarah hesitated. She thought they might turn their anger towards her.
Are you saying you want to hear from Trump supporters? This would be unprecedented for your newspaper. It seems unusual that your publication would seek out these perspectives.
I want to hear from everyone. It's important to understand all perspectives, especially now.
Just make sure you print the truth, Sarah. Don't let them sugarcoat what's really going on.
The men walked away in opposite directions. Sarah stood frozen in place. The weight of her responsibility as a journalist felt heavier than ever. She took out her notebook. Sarah quickly wrote down her observations and parts of conversation she'd heard.
How am I supposed to bridge this divide when I can barely understand it myself?
Sarah let out a deep sigh. She continued her walk through the town. She was more determined than ever. Sarah wanted to find a way to tell Millbrook's complex story. By doing so, she hoped to help heal her community. The Millbrook Community Center buzzed with tension. Residents filed in for the town hall meeting. Sarah Matthews arrived with a notepad in hand. She scanned the room, observing the attendees. Sarah noticed a mix of excited and concerned faces. The atmosphere was charged as people took their seats, ready for the discussion to begin.
This is going to be interesting. I've never seen the center this packed before.
Sarah spotted Tom Hawkins near the front. His presence drew attention. Both supporters and skeptics took notice.
All right, folks, let's get this meeting started. We've got a lot to discuss about our town's future.
As Tom began to speak, Sarah noticed something. A group of people who looked frustrated huddled near the back. She made a note to approach them later.
The reopening of Millbrook manufacturing has brought jobs back to our town. We're seeing storefronts fill up again on Main Street. However, I know not everyone is experiencing the positive changes yet.
It's about time we had some good news. Trump's policies are finally putting America first.
At what cost are we taking these actions? We are alienating our international partners. Environmental regulations are being reversed. These changes are dangerous for our planet. The consequences of our decisions could be severe and far-reaching.
Sarah watched as the room burst into intense discussion. She wrote notes quickly. Sarah was trying to record the intensity of each perspective. Her goal was to document the fervor of opposing views in the debate.
Excuse me, Tom. I'm Sarah Matthews from the Millbrook Gazette. Can you address the concerns of some people? They haven't seen improvements in their situation.
Of course, Sarah. We recognize that the changes haven't reached everyone yet. That's why we're here today. We want to discuss how we can ensure the benefits reach all parts of our community.
As the meeting continued, Sarah approached a group. She had noticed this group earlier. A woman with a worried expression caught her attention. The woman agreed to speak with Sarah.
I'm glad some people are doing better. However, my shop is still struggling. The big box store on the edge of town is causing problems. It's having a negative impact on us small businesses.
I'm sorry to hear that. How has the town's economic shift affected you personally?
The situation has been challenging. My daughter had to leave college to help run our store. We're struggling to keep the business going. Meanwhile, everyone's talking about an amazing economic turnaround. This contrast between our personal hardship and the perceived general prosperity is striking.
Sarah felt a pang of guilt. She had been focused on the positive changes. However, she had overlooked stories like these.
Thank you for sharing your experience. It's important that all voices are heard. This applies to our conversation.
As the meeting wound down, Sarah found herself deep in thought. She had been writing statistics and headlines. Suddenly, these facts felt hollow. They paled in the face of individual struggles.
Sarah, I need your article on the town hall by tomorrow morning. What's your angle?
I think I need to rethink my approach. There's more to this story than I realized.
Sarah left the community center. The weight of her realization was heavy on her shoulders. She now understood the human cost of economic policies. It was far more complex and personal than she had ever imagined. This new insight made her view the world differently.
How do I even begin to capture all of this? It's not just about numbers anymore.
Sarah walked home, deep in thought. She knew her next article would be different. It would mark a turning point in her career. This piece would change her reporting approach. It would also shift her understanding of Millbrook. Sarah realized her own preconceptions were changing too. The town's recent changes had opened her eyes to new perspectives. Sarah Matthews set up a picnic blanket in Millbrook's local park on a warm Saturday afternoon. The sun filtered through old oak trees, creating patterns of light and shadow on the grass. She had organized this casual outdoor meeting with friends. Sarah hoped to relax after weeks of busy reporting on the town's economic changes.
Hey everyone, thanks for coming out today. I thought we could all use a break. It's been pretty crazy lately.
Absolutely, Sarah. It's been quite a ride, hasn't it? I still can't believe how much has changed, and all of this in just a few months.
Sarah's friends settled onto the blanket. The conversation naturally drifted to a new topic. It was something on everyone's minds. They discussed Millbrook's surprising economic turnaround. This revival was attributed to Trump's policies. The unexpected boost to Millbrook's economy had caught their attention.
I have to admit, my shop's been doing better lately. It's performing better than it has in years. I never thought I'd say this, but the new policies are working. These changes seem to be benefiting us small business owners.
Come on, Lisa. You can't seriously be buying into this, can you? It's just a temporary boost. Trump's policies are going to hurt us in the long run.
I've been looking into this matter carefully. The situation isn't as simple as it might appear at first glance. There are aspects of these policies that are actually helping. In fact, these measures seem to be genuinely benefiting Millbrook in several ways.
Sarah, are you defending Trump? I thought you of all people would see through this charade.
I'm not defending Trump as a person. Let me clarify my point. Some financial strategies are having positive effects. These strategies are benefiting our town. We can't ignore the positive outcomes. This remains true even if we don't like who put them in place.
Sarah could feel the tension rising among her friends. She hadn't intended to start a political debate. However, she felt compelled to share information. This information came from her recent reporting. Sarah's findings seemed important enough to discuss, despite the risk of controversy.
I agree with Sarah's perspective. We should separate policies from the individual. My business is currently thriving. As a result, I can hire more employees. Isn't this a positive development?
But at what cost? These policies are damaging our relationships with other countries. They could lead to future financial issues. Sarah, how can you not see that?
Look, I'm not saying everything is perfect. We need to look at the facts objectively. Millbrook Manufacturing is reopening production lines, small businesses are growing, people are getting jobs. These changes matter to our community.
The discussion was becoming more heated. Sarah found herself disagreeing with her liberal friends. This was an unfamiliar situation for her. She felt a growing sense of unease. Sarah realized her perspective was changing. These shifts in her outlook were unexpected for her.
I can't believe what I'm hearing. It's like I don't even know you anymore, Sarah. Have you forgotten our shared values? This change in you is shocking and makes me question everything we've believed in together.
I haven't forgotten anything. I'm simply trying to report the truth. Sometimes, the truth doesn't match what we've always believed. Isn't that the essence of good journalism? We aim to uncover facts, even when they challenge our long-held views.
The once friendly gathering had turned into a tense standoff. Sarah looked around at her friends' faces. She saw a mix of confusion, anger, and disappointment. A profound sense of isolation settled in Sarah's chest.
Maybe we should all take a step back and cool off. This is getting too heated.
You're right, Lisa. I'm sorry, everyone. I didn't mean to ruin our afternoon. Maybe we should call it a day.
Sarah's friends began to pack up and leave. They cast uncertain glances her way. Sarah remained seated on the blanket. The park had seemed inviting earlier. Now it felt alien and unwelcoming. She couldn't shake a troubling feeling. It was as if she had crossed an invisible line. This line had permanently changed her relationships. It had also altered her sense of self.
Quietly to herself, what's happening to me? Where do I fit in now?
The question hung in the air, unanswered. Sarah sat alone in the park. She was struggling with her changing loyalties. As she reflected, Sarah realized her journey of understanding was far from over. The path ahead seemed long, but she was determined to find clarity. Sarah's laptop casts a faint glow in her small apartment. The light illuminates her cluttered desk and creates long shadows. Outside, the streets of Millbrook are quiet. Inside, Sarah's mind is a whirlwind of conflicting thoughts and emotions.
God, how am I supposed to make sense of all this?
Sarah pushes away from her desk. She runs her hands through her messy hair. Standing up, Sarah paces the room. Her eyes dart between stacks of documents. Notes, economic reports, and interview records are spread out everywhere. The cluttered surfaces reflect Sarah's state of stress and deep concentration.
The numbers don't lie, jobs are up, and businesses are reopening. But can it really be this simple?
Sarah picks up a report on local business growth. She sets it down next to an article about ongoing wealth gaps. The contrast between the documents is stark. Sarah feels the weight of her responsibility as a journalist. She ponders how to reconcile these different economic realities in her reporting.
There's more to this story than meets the eye. I can't simply ignore the improvements we've seen. However, I also can't overlook the existing problems.
Sarah glances at the clock. She realizes how late it has become. She bites her lip, deep in thought. Sarah contemplates what to do next. After a brief moment of hesitation, she reaches for her phone.
Hello, Sarah? It's pretty late.
Tom, I'm sorry to call at this hour. I need your help with something important. I'm trying to write an article about Millbrook. I'm having trouble understanding everything that's happening there.
Slow down, Sarah. What's got you so worked up?
I've always believed that progressive policies were the answer to our town's problems. But now, with these protective policies in place, I'm seeing real changes. They're good changes, Tom. I don't know how to align this with my long-held beliefs. It's challenging to make sense of these improvements, given the principles I've always supported.
There's a pause on the other end of the line. Sarah can almost picture Tom's actions. She imagines him leaning back in his chair. Tom is thinking carefully about what to say.
Sarah, politics isn't simply black and white. Sometimes what works in theory doesn't succeed in practice. Good things can often come from unexpected places. This complexity in politics means we should remain open-minded and adaptable in our approach to governance and policymaking.
But how can you support someone like Trump? After everything he's said and done.
It's not about supporting everything he does or says. It's about recognizing when a policy works for our community. You've seen the changes yourself, haven't you? This approach encourages critical thinking and personal observation rather than blind support.
Sarah's gaze falls on a photo. It shows Millbrook's reopened Main Street. The street is bustling with activity. Sarah sighs deeply. Her voice reveals an inner struggle. The image of the busy street seems to stir conflicting emotions within her.
I have experienced it. However, I'm worried about the long-term effects. Many people are still struggling. The environmental impact is also concerning.
Those are all valid concerns, Sarah. That's why we need journalists like you. We need you to tell the whole story. It's not just about the good or the bad. It's about the whole complicated truth.
Sarah's shoulders relax slightly. Tom's words resonate with her. They align with her sense of journalistic integrity.
I'm trying, Tom. I really am. But it feels like I'm betraying someone, no matter what I write. This includes my liberal friends and my family's Democratic roots. It also affects the people of Millbrook, who are finally seeing some hope.
Maybe the only one you need to worry about is betraying yourself, Sarah. Write the truth as you see it. That's all any of us can do.
Sarah nods, even though Tom can't see her. She feels a renewed sense of purpose. This feeling is tinged with uncertainty. She is challenging her own deeply held beliefs. The process of questioning her core values brings a mix of determination and doubt.
Thanks, Tom. I think I needed to hear that. I've got a lot to think about.
Anytime, Sarah. Remember, the town's story isn't over yet. We're all still figuring this out together.
Sarah ends the call and turns back to her laptop. The blank document stares back at her. Now it feels less like an accusation and more like an opportunity. With a deep breath, she begins to type. Sarah is ready to confront Millbrook's complicated changes. Before we continue, let's take a moment to reflect. What do you think about this story? What would you like to hear next? Please share your thoughts in the comments. The early morning sun casts long shadows across the Millbrook factory. Sarah Matthews arrived with a notepad in hand. The factory hummed with renewed energy. This was a stark contrast to its quiet state just months ago. As Sarah approached the entrance, she spotted Tom Hawkins. Tom, the union leader, was waiting for her.
Morning, Sarah. Ready for your crash course in factory life?
Morning, Tom. I'm as ready as I'll ever be. Thanks for doing this. I know it's not standard procedure to have a reporter shadowing you. This arrangement will last all day.
Well, these aren't exactly standard times, are they? Come on, let's get you prepared. I'll equip you with some safety gear.
As they walked through the plant, noise surrounded them. The clanging of machinery and buzz of activity filled the air. Workers nodded respectfully at Tom as they passed. Some workers eyed Sarah with curiosity. The bustling environment captured the essence of the busy industrial setting.
Our first stop is the assembly line. Here, you'll really see the difference. These new policies have made significant changes to the production process.
I have to admit, it's busier than I expected. How many new hires have you had?
We've brought on about 50 new workers in the last month alone. And there's talk of more to come.
Sarah's pen paused over her notepad. Her brow furrowed slightly. She was processing the information. This brief moment captured Sarah's deep concentration as she absorbed what she had just learned.
That's significant. Are these mostly local hires?
You bet. It's mostly folks who lost their jobs years ago. Their children are involved too. Millbrook is coming back to life, Sarah. You can feel the change in the air.
As they continued their tour, Sarah observed the workers. She noted their focus and purposeful movements. Sarah couldn't deny the positive energy filling the factory floor. The atmosphere was charged with a sense of dedication and productivity.
Tom, I have a question for you. How much of this do you attribute to Trump's policies? Surely there are other factors at play as well.
Look, Sarah, I understand you're not a fan of the man. I wasn't either at first. But these tariffs are making a real difference. The push for American manufacturing is having an impact. It's not just affecting our business. Our suppliers are also ramping up their operations.
Sarah nodded and jotted down notes. Her inner struggle was visible on her face. She found it difficult to align her political views. The facts in front of her challenged what she believed. Sarah was trying to make sense of this new information. Suddenly, a voice came through the PA system. It called for all employees to gather in the main area. Tom looked at Sarah with surprise.
This wasn't scheduled. Come on, let's see what's up.
They joined the crowd of workers assembling near the plant center. The factory manager was a tall man in his 50s. He stood on a raised platform. His face beamed with excitement.
All right, everyone, settle down. I've got some big news to share with you all. There have been recent policy changes in our company. We've also been seeing increased demand for our products. Because of these factors, the board has approved expansion plans. We're looking to add another production line to our facilities. This expansion will create at least 75 new jobs. These changes will take place over the coming months.
The announcement was met with cheers and applause from the workers. Sarah was shocked by the reaction. Her pen remained frozen above her notepad, capturing her surprise.
Sarah, you okay?
Yeah. Just processing. This is huge news, Tom.
It sure is. This town has been waiting for a break like this for a long time. Do you think you can write a fair article about all of this?
Sarah met Tom's gaze. Her professional integrity was at odds with her personal beliefs. She took a deep breath. Sarah prepared to respond. This moment of tension highlighted her internal struggle as she balanced her professional responsibilities against her own convictions.
I'll write the truth, Tom. Whatever that turns out to be.
As the excitement continued around them, Sarah realized she had reached a turning point. The article she would write about this day had great potential. It could change not just her career, but her entire worldview. Sarah felt a mix of nervousness and determination. She began to formulate the opening lines in her head. Sarah knew her words would carry more weight than ever before. This moment would shape her future writing and perspective. Sarah sat at her desk in the Millbrook Gazette office. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. The finished article on her screen represented weeks of work. It included research, interviews, and deep reflection. With a deep breath, Sarah clicked Publish.
Sarah, are you sure about this? It's a pretty big departure from your usual stance.
I'm sure, Jack. It's time we reported the whole truth, even if it's not what we expected to find.
The article went live. Sarah felt a mix of relief and apprehension. She knew the consequences would come quickly. The fallout could potentially be severe. Sarah braced herself for the rapid and possibly serious reactions to her published work.
Sarah Matthews speaking.
Sarah, it's Tom Hawkins. I just read your article. I've got to say, I'm impressed. You really captured what's happening here in Millbrook.
Thanks, Tom. That means a lot coming from you. I tried to be as objective as possible.
Well, you succeeded. It's refreshing to see a journalist admit when their initial assumptions were wrong. You've earned my respect, Sarah.
Sarah ended the call. She felt a mix of pride and unease. As she packed up to leave, her phone buzzed. Notifications flooded in from social media. Her article was causing an explosion of reactions online. Later that evening, Sarah entered her apartment. She was exhausted from the long day. Sarah had barely sat down. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door.
Lisa? What are you doing here?
How could you, Sarah? Your article is practically endorsing Trump's policies.
I'm not endorsing anything, Lisa. I'm reporting the facts as I've found them.
Facts? You're giving ammunition to the other side? Do you have any idea how this makes us look?
Us? Lisa, I'm a journalist. My job is to report the truth, not to make any side look good or bad.
I thought I knew you, Sarah. I guess I was wrong.
Lisa stormed out of the room. Sarah was left standing in the doorway, feeling shaken. She closed the door slowly. Sarah leaned against it and closed her eyes. Sarah checked her phone. She found a message. The message was from her father.
Proud of you, kiddo. It takes guts to write what you did. Let's talk soon.
Sarah smiled weakly at her father's support. The weight of the day's events was settling on her shoulders. She walked to her living room window. Sarah looked out at the town she thought she knew so well.
Who am I now? What does this mean for everything I've believed in?
The sun set over Millbrook. Sarah realized her journey was far from over. She had embarked on a path of self-discovery and professional growth. The article had been published. However, the real story was just beginning. The Millbrook Community Center buzzed with nervous energy. Residents entered for the town forum. Sarah Matthews stood at the podium. Her hands shook slightly as she adjusted the microphone. The room was clearly divided. Tension was evident between different political groups. The atmosphere was charged as the meeting began.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to this important discussion. We're here to talk about our town's future. I know we have our differences, but I believe we can find common ground. We need to listen to each other with open minds and hearts.
Sarah's eyes scanned the room. She noticed skeptical looks on some faces. Others had hopeful expressions. She took a deep breath. Then, she prepared to continue.
Let's start by hearing from Tom Hawkins. Tom is our union leader at Millbrook Manufacturing. Tom, can you share your thoughts on recent changes? We're interested in your perspective about our town.
Thanks, Sarah. I know many folks here were surprised when I started supporting Trump's policies. But the fact is, they've brought jobs back to Millbrook. Our factory is now running at full capacity for the first time in years. That's not something we can ignore, regardless of party lines.
A murmur rippled through the crowd. Sarah noticed some nodding heads. Meanwhile, others crossed their arms defensively. This mix of reactions showed the diverse responses within the gathering.
Thank you, Tom. Now let's hear from Lisa Chen. Lisa is one of our local small business owners. Lisa, how have these changes affected you?
Well, Sarah, I'll be honest. I was skeptical at first, but my business has seen a real upturn. We've had more customers and more sales. It's not just benefiting the factory workers. There's a ripple effect throughout the town. However, I'm concerned about the lasting effects of these policies.
Sarah nodded, acknowledging Lisa's mixed feelings. She could see the complexity of the situation. The complexity was reflected in the faces of the attendees.
These are important points. Now I'd like to hear from someone with a different perspective. David Matthews, whom I called Dad, would you like to share your thoughts?
Thanks, honey. You all know me. I've been a Democrat my whole life, but I can't deny that things are looking up in Millbrook. It's complicated. I'm happy to see my neighbors working again, but I worry about what these policies mean for the country as a whole. We need to think beyond just our town.
The room grew quiet as people absorbed David's words. Sarah could feel the tension easing slightly. Participants began to recognize the nuances of the situation.
Thank you all for your honesty. What I'm hearing is that this isn't a simple issue. There are positives and negatives, hopes and concerns. Maybe we should focus less on political labels. Instead, we should ask how we can work together. Our goal should be ensuring Millbrook's success. This is important, regardless of who's in the White House.
As the discussion continued, Sarah expertly guided the conversation. She encouraged respectful dialogue among participants. Sarah also focused on finding common ground. By the end of the evening, the atmosphere had changed. It shifted from tense to carefully hopeful.
Before we conclude, I want to thank everyone for participating. This conversation isn't over. It's just beginning. Let's continue talking and listening to each other. We must keep working together for Millbrook's benefit.
As the crowd dispersed, Sarah felt a mix of exhaustion and hope. She had taken the first step in bridging the divide in her community. For the first time in months, she felt truly fulfilled as a journalist. She wasn't just reporting the news anymore. Sarah was helping her town navigate through challenging times. Her role had evolved, and she was making a real difference in people's lives. The sun rose over Millbrook, casting a warm glow on the newly improved streets. Sarah Matthews sat at her desk, ready to type. The final task of her journey was at hand. A blank document waited on her screen. She prepared to write about the town's transformation and her own personal growth.
This is it. We've reached the pivotal story. It's the tale that connects everything. But where do I start? How can I capture all that's happened?
Sarah's eyes drifted to the framed photo on her desk. It was a snapshot of her and Lisa from happier times. With a deep breath, Sarah began to type.
1 year ago, I thought I knew Millbrook. I also believed I knew myself. Our town has undergone changes. As a result, I've changed too.
Hours passed as Sarah poured her heart into the article. She wove together the intricate blend of Millbrook's economic revival. The article also covered political shifts and human stories at its center. As Sarah finished her work, a knock at her office door caught her attention.
Sarah, do you have a minute?
Lisa? Yes, come in.
Lisa Chen entered the room. Her expression was a mix of hesitation and hope. The tension between them was palpable. A year's worth of disagreements hung in the air. Misunderstandings from the past lingered. The atmosphere was charged with unresolved emotions, reflecting their complicated history.
I saw your latest articles. They're different and more balanced. I wanted to talk to you about them. Well, I also wanted to discuss us.
Lisa, I'm glad you're here. I've been wanting to talk to you too. This past year has been a roller coaster. I now realize I pushed away important people. This includes you, who matters most to me.
We've both changed, Sarah. The town has changed. But maybe that's not entirely a bad thing.
Sarah stood and moved to the window. The window overlooked Main Street. Previously closed shops now bustled with activity. This was a sign of Millbrook's recovery. The town was clearly making a comeback, with renewed life visible on its main thoroughfare.
You're right. I was so caught up in my beliefs and what I thought was right, I couldn't see the bigger picture. The truth is, Millbrook's story isn't black and white. It's complicated, messy, and full of contradictions. This complexity is just like real life.
That's what I've been trying to say from the beginning. It's not about choosing sides. Instead, it's about finding a way forward together.
I know that now. Lisa, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for judging you. I'm sorry for not listening. Can we start over?
Lisa's eyes softened. A small smile formed on her lips.
I'd like that, Sarah. I've missed my best friend.
The two women embraced warmly. Their years of friendship had overcome months of discord. As they parted, Sarah made a gesture. She pointed towards her computer.
I just finished my final piece. It's about Millbrook's transformation. Would you like to read it?
I'd love to.
Lisa was reading intently. Sarah observed her friend's reactions closely. She noticed Lisa's nods of agreement. Sometimes Lisa's brow furrowed at complex points. Occasionally, she chuckled at well-phrased sentences. When Lisa finished reading, she looked up. Tears had formed in her eyes.
This is beautiful, Sarah. You've captured the heart of what's happening here. The hope, challenges, and uncertainty are all present in your work.
Thank you. I think I finally understand what it means to be a true journalist. It's about seeking the truth, even when it's challenging. This pursuit may test everything you believe.
Later that evening, the sun began to set. Sarah stood on the roof of the press building. She gazed out over Millbrook. The town sprawled before her. It was a mix of old and new, struggle and progress. Sarah observed the changing landscape as day turned to night.
Millbrook, you've taught me so much. You've shown me about resilience and change. I've learned the dangers of viewing things as only right or wrong. We've got a long road ahead of us. For the first time in years, I feel hope.
Sarah took a deep breath. She felt the weight of responsibility come over her. This responsibility wasn't a burden to her. Instead, she saw it as a calling. The sense of purpose filled her with determination.
Whatever comes next, I'll be here. I'll be listening, learning, and doing my best. My goal is to bridge the divides. This is what Millbrook needs. It's also what America needs. We need understanding and compassion. We also need the courage to see beyond our own perspectives. Together, we can work towards a more united community and nation.
The last rays of sunlight painted the sky in shades of orange and pink. Sarah smiled at the beautiful scene. The future was uncertain, but Sarah felt ready. For the first time in a long while, she could face what lay ahead. She approached the future with an open mind and heart, free from fear or judgment. The story has come to an end. Thank you for taking the time to listen. Please share your thoughts in the comment section. I'm eager to hear what you think about the story. I'll read every comment you leave. You can expect a personal reply from me. Looking forward to our next meeting.